Welcome to the Supreme Grammar Podcast, where you can learn to write like a Supreme Court Justice, with me, Jill Barton. On this episode, our AI hosts discuss how to level up your legal research game. Skilled legal researchers balance the need for accuracy, thoroughness, efficiency, and economy. Let's listen in.
All right, so, everybody thinks about law school and they think about all the reading, but well, one of the things that is really critical for any lawyer is legal research, which you'll be doing a ton of in law school and even more once you're out there practicing law. So we're going to do a deep dive today on legal research.
Yes, and it's definitely a skill that you build over time. But the good news is that law school is the perfect time to really hone those skills.
It really is. You have the time and resources to really dive deep and learn how to do it right.
That's right.
Without the pressure of billable hours.
Exactly. And one of the things that makes it so challenging is that you're not just looking for any answer. You're looking for the right answer.
Right.
And you need to understand it fully.
The right answer, and you need to fully understand it. And that's where our main source for today comes in, the handbook for the new legal writer. This book is it's a great resource for legal research. It takes a really practical step-by-step approach.
Yeah, it's very, very practical.
Which I think is great for for law students who are just starting out. Okay, so let's jump right into the process. So the book emphasizes that legal research is more than just typing a few keywords into a database. It's about understanding the different types of legal authorities and how they all fit together.
It's like solving a puzzle.
Oh, I like that.
You have all these pieces of information scattered across different sources, constitutions, statutes, cases, regulations, and you have to figure out how they all connect.
Right. And speaking of sources, it's important to acknowledge the shift from traditional law libraries to online databases. I mean, I don't know if you remember your first time in a law library, but talk about feeling overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah. It's a different world now. Most legal research is done online through platforms like Westlaw and LexisNexis. Right. But the book reminds us that print resources are still relevant, especially for historical research or when you need to get a broader understanding of a topic. So you need to be comfortable with both print and online formats.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You wouldn't rely solely on GPS to navigate a new city.
Oh, that's a good one.
Sometimes you need to consult a map to get the lay of the land.
I like that. Okay, so let's say you're researching a question about the constitutionality of a city law that bans guns near bars. This is where that puzzle analogy really comes in.
Right. You can't just search for guns and bars and call it a day. You need to think about the different types of legal authority that might be relevant, constitutional provisions, state statutes, local ordinances, case law, interpreting those laws.
And this is where understanding how to research statutes becomes crucial. So the handbook for the new legal writer has a whole section on what are called annotated codes. And those are basically collections of statutes with annotations. So
yeah, think of them as statutes with bonus features.
Okay, I like it.
You get the text of the law plus summaries of court decisions that have interpreted that statute.
So instead of just seeing the law in isolation, you're also getting a sense of how it's been applied in real-world situations.
Exactly.
And those annotations can lead you to relevant case law, which is another key piece of the puzzle.
Right.
Case law, those reporters we mentioned earlier. That's where you find the published court decisions. And even though most research is done online, cases are still identified by their print citation.
So understanding the organization of those reporters, federal and regional, is still really important.
Absolutely. And it's not just about finding any case. You need to know which courts are binding in your situation.
That's right. A decision from a federal court in California won't necessarily have the same weight as a state court in Texas.
Right.
You need to understand the hierarchy of the courts.
So we've got all these different pieces of the puzzle: statutes, cases, constitutions, regulations. But before we start, frantically searching through databases, the book really stresses the importance of creating a research plan.
And that's where the real detective work begins.
Yeah. So think of a research plan like a blueprint for your legal research project. It helps you stay focused, organized, and efficient.
Okay. A blueprint to build a rock-solid legal argument. So how do we create this blueprint? What are the key steps?
The handbook outlines 3 essential steps: formulating your research question, identifying the relevant jurisdiction, and generating effective search terms.
Okay, let's break those down. First up, the research question. I'm guessing this is more than just what's the law on this.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You need to get specific. Let's say you're dealing with a copyright issue. Instead of just asking, what is copyright law, you might ask, can a musician be held liable for copyright infringement for using a 15-second sample of another song?
So we're getting into the nitty-gritty, defining the scope of what we're actually looking for. And that brings us to the next step, identifying the relevant jurisdiction. This can be a little tricky because jurisdiction has a few different meanings in the legal world.
Wait, hold on. Multiple meanings. This is where my brain starts to melt a little.
Don't worry. It's not as complicated as it sounds. First, you need to determine what category of law applies. Is it federal, state, or local? Then you need to figure out the specific geographic area. And finally, you need to consider which level of courts has binding authority on the issue.
Okay, so in our music sampling example, we'd first determine that it's a federal copyright issue. Then we'd need to figure out which federal circuit court would hear the case, because that tells us which circuit's precedents are binding.
Exactly. And then we'd consider the level of court. A district court decision might be persuasive, but it wouldn't be binding in the same way that a decision from the Supreme Court would be.
Okay, so we've got our research question nailed down. We know which jurisdiction we're dealing with. What's the next step in building our legal research blueprint?
The final step is generating those all-important search terms. Think of them as your keywords for unlocking the legal information you need.
So like when I'm frantically Googling how to fix a leaky faucet at 2 a.m.
Similar concept, but in the legal world, precision is key. You want to be as specific as possible.
Okay, so less leaky faucet, more dripping kitchen sink faucet with a compression valve.
Yes. In our music sampling example, you might start with keywords like copyright, infringement, and music sampling. Then you can brainstorm synonyms and related terms like intellectual property, unlawful use, fair use, and sound recording.
Got it. So cast a wide net with keywords, but then refine it with more specific terms to really hone in on what I'm looking for.
Exactly. And don't forget to consider different ways to phrase your search. You might start broad with copyright infringement and then narrow it down to sampling of copyrighted music or even unauthorized use of a sound recording.
This is making me think about those Boolean operators we learned in our legal research class. And, or not. Those little words can make a big difference in your search results.
Absolutely. They're like secret weapons for legal researchers. They help you narrow down your search and filter out irrelevant information.
So we've formulated a research question. We've identified the relevant jurisdiction. We've generated our search terms. Do we finally get to dive into those legal databases?
Almost. The Handbook for the New Legal Writer recommends starting with secondary sources. Think of them as your reconnaissance mission before you launch a full-scale research operation.
Secondary sources. Remind me what those are again.
Think of them as guides to the legal landscape. Legal encyclopedias, treatises, law review articles, legal dictionaries. They provide overviews of different areas of law and can point you toward relevant primary sources like statutes and case law.
Okay, so kind of like the Cliff's Notes of legal research. They give you a big picture understanding of a topic before you dig into the specifics.
Exactly. They're a great way to get your bearings and make sure you're on the right track. And they can be particularly helpful if you're researching an unfamiliar area of law.
Speaking of unfamiliar, how do I even know which secondary sources are reliable? There are so many out there.
That's where your legal research skills come in. Look for sources that are written by respected legal scholars and published by reputable organizations. And always double-check the information you find against primary sources.
Right. Don't just take someone's word for it. Always verify.
And this is where those free resources come in handy. Government websites are a goldmine of legal information. You can find the full text of statutes, regulations, court decisions, and even legislative history documents.
Free. Tell me more.
There is also the Legal Information Institute, or LII, at Cornell Law School. It's a fantastic resource for federal legal materials. And then there's Google Scholar, which is a free search engine for legal scholarship.
You're telling me I don't always have to shell out big bucks for Westlaw or LexisNexis. This is a game changer.
Just remember to be cautious with information you find online. Always verify the source and make sure it's accurate and up to date.
Okay, so we've scouted the terrain with secondary sources, maybe even found some valuable nuggets of information. Now it's time to dive into those primary sources, the actual statutes, cases, and regulations.
Exactly. And this is where those search terms we generated earlier come into play.
Time to put those Boolean operators to work.
Right, and this is where, the handbook reminds us that. The law is a living, breathing thing. It's constantly evolving. So it's essential to validate and update your research regularly.
Absolutely.
So you can't just assume, even if you find like the perfect case that answers your question perfectly, you can't just assume that it's still good law, 5 years later.
Exactly. You got to use those citators that we talked about earlier to make sure that your sources are still accurate and haven't been overruled or superseded, and stay up to date on recent developments in your area of research. Right. You can't let your legal arguments get stale. Okay, so we've talked about research plans, search terms, secondary sources, primary sources, citators. I'm starting to feel like a legal research ninja over here. But I have a confession to make.
Okay.
All of this research is great, but it feels kind of pointless if I don't know how to cite it properly. Those footnotes and legal citations always give me a headache.
I hear you. Accurate citations are the backbone of legal writing. They give your arguments credibility, and they allow others to follow your research trail.
So it's not just about finding the information. It's about presenting it in a way that's clear and organized and ethical.
Exactly. And lucky for you, we've got a whole episode coming up on the art of legal citation.
Oh, perfect.
We'll demystify those Blue Book rules, and we'll give you all the tools you need to cite like a champ.
Can't wait. Well, for now, I'm feeling a lot more confident about about tackling my next legal research assignment. So thank you for that. Thanks to the handbook for the new legal writer. And, of course, thanks to you.
You're very welcome. And just remember, legal research is a skill, and it develops over time. So be patient with yourself, stay curious, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it.
Great advice, yeah. And remember, everyone listening, legal research is more than just a tedious task. It's really the foundation of everything you'll do in your legal career. So embrace the challenge, and happy researching.
Happy researching.
If you think of research as a process or an adventure, you will help yourself find the authorities you need for anything you're writing. Try to stay curious and be patient with yourself. Legal research is a skill to be learned just like any other in law school. And remember, you can be a great legal writer.